Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the professor, and this is the moment of truth.
Because I have not followed your plea bargain agreement. Now, the conditions for the plea bargain agreement, that's something the court gets to decide. You understand? So if for some reason I don't follow your plea bargain agreement and I try to give you more than what you've bargained for, then you get to withdraw your plea. And it can't be used against you if you decide to go to jury trial. You understand? And by that same token, if you withdraw your plea, then the state can say, okay, we're going to have to go to jury trial. We're going to go to jury trial. And maybe they won't be going to jury trial on a Class A misdemeanor. They'll be going to trial on the injury to the elderly. Not maybe, that's what they'd have to do. You understand? Explain to me, what's an N knocked? That's in the police report. The officer said suspect 1 stated that victim 1 had N knocked on her door.
And they knocked on their door trying to.
No, I'm asking.
Constantly.
No. What is an N knock?
Nigger knocking.
Yeah, what is that?
Going and knocking on a door and running.
But why is it nigger knocking?
That's what.
Why isn't it Caucasian knocking? Why isn't no? Why isn't it Caucasian knocking? Why isn't Asian knocking? Why isn't some other knocking? Why is it called that?
I don't know. That's just the way they say it.
No, that's the way you say it because that's what you said.
That's what they. That's basically. All right. I don't know what else to tell you.
No, I'm just trying to figure out why. Why would you call it that?
It wasn't to be racist. The kids just kept knocking and knocking on my door, constantly doing that to me. They live upstairs. I did not touch this kid, and I really don't even want to sit here and plead to say that I did.
Oh, you can go. We can have a jury trial.
I don't want to do that because he says that's not the best thing to do.
No.
I just lost. Look, I lost a child. My son was 19 years old, was murdered just 2 years ago. I'm under a lot of stress already. So I'm just trying to get out of this and get it as easy as
just what?
I'm just stressed out enough.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So do you want a jury trial?
No, I don't. I just want to get this over with, do the probation and whatever I have to do.
All right. So what was the race of
you asked me that question. If you knew the answer to the question.
What is the race of the complainant?
Hispanic.
Hispanic.
Everyone's Hispanic in the instance.
Mm-hmm. And if I knew the answer, I don't know why you would say that. That's why I'm trying to figure out why you're saying it, because in the police report, they say you were intoxicated. So I'm trying to figure out.
Intoxicated.
That's what it says in the police report. It says suspect stated V had N knocked on her door and she came outside to see who knocked. And victim's family came down the stairs yelling at her, accused her of hitting the victim. Suspect kept saying she did not want to tell her side of the story and tried to walk away to go inside. I detained suspect to investigate further. And it says in here that there was signs of drinking.
I don't see a crime in drinking in your own home. I was in my own home.
I'm just trying to figure out what's going on because I have to set conditions for you. Is this an anger problem? Because they want you to do.
I'm sorry that you caught me off guard with the question that you asked me. I feel like you're kind of in a setup, I felt kind of set up with that question. I understand it's not a word to be used, and I understand that I used it in the wrong word, in a wrong way, and I apologize for that. So I'm sorry.
There's more in here that you said. You're using profanity. I am trying to figure out, because it says suspect had a strong odor of intoxicants on her. I'm trying to figure out why the state is asking for anger management, because they're requesting that you do anger management. They're requesting that you have a TAP evaluation to see if you have a drug or alcohol problem. They're asking for sober support meetings. Sober support meetings are usually for people who have a drug or alcohol problem. I'm trying to figure out what's going on because you told me that the lady, Samantha, had, assaulted you or is still causing problems with you. So I'm trying to read the room and figure out what's going on, and I cannot.
No, I don't have a drinking problem. Yes, I lost my child on February 5th, 2023. He was murdered by a best friend in a gas station in Austin, Texas. And I lost my fiance 11 days before that. He had a heart attack inside my home. I've been under a lot of stress and frustration. These people don't leave me alone from upstairs. It's a constant fight with this lady. So I'm moving myself away from that environment. I've already lost my job because of her, that I had a job with for 6 years, working from home.
Well, I guess Thomas Jefferson had it right after all. If you want to get screwed, or in this case, if you want to screw yourself, go to court. Now, you see, this case in particular was in Texas. but it has everything to do with what's going on in California, because this is the reason why you don't see black folks sticking their necks out, nor should we be. This woman here was looking at all kinds of charges. Assault bodily injury is a Class A misdemeanor, and that was the plea deal that she got. So they decided they were going to overlook all this mess that was going on. Let's go ahead and try to water this down because, you're not dealing with a black defendant, so that's how the system works then. The judge said that if this heifer withdrew her plea, then the DA would upgrade the charges to injury to the elderly. Injury to the elderly. So that's what it was supposed to have been. That's what that means. The charge she should have been looking at is injury to the elderly. So apparently she got into some kind of physical altercation with her neighbors, and apparently there was some sort of elderly person who was injured by her, and there were some other people making complaints as well, and that's what put her in court. So she got into a fight with her neighbors, and then the judge dropped the bomb. The N-bomb. And wanted to know, what did that mean? And this woman sitting here, she already knew that she was stuck, but it's a matter of the judge had every right to ask about that. This heifer had an attitude, though, saying she felt the judge was setting her up. Setting her up? She was indignant that the judge was asking her to explain the circumstances of the crime that she had committed. The judge didn't snatch her off the street and say, "You're going to court." She put herself in that situation, and she showed exactly what kind of person that she is. Her Hispanic neighbors were knocking on her door, and she's calling it nigger knocking. And then when the judge does her job in open court and asks for clarification of the police report, this woman sits here being all indignant, phony indignation. This because the judge was actually doing her job, asking her to explain, for the sake of her plea deal, the circumstances of the crime that she had committed. That's the judge's job, getting details about it. What is it that we're making a plea deal on? What are the circumstances here? The judge explained it. This was about setting the conditions so that she could find out whether this was someone who needs to be in anger management or drug treatment. Hell, I would have sentenced her to both. But the thing to remember is this is what's going on in Texas right now, and not just Texas, other places. You got people who come from cultures that practice rampant anti-black racism, and they bring that mess here. Here she is with her Hispanic neighbors knocking on her door, apparently to hear her tell it, tormenting her, and the first thing that comes to her otherwise empty head is to start throwing around the N-word, where there's no black people concerned, and even if there were, that wouldn't have made it right. But it just goes to show, when it comes to these anti-black racists, you got to go beyond just the people who come from Western Europe, just the Caucasians alone. Everybody has drank from that particular cup. There's a whole lot of people who have been eating good and feeling good and living good off of anti-black racism. That's where reparations comes in. Because you got all these other people, especially these immigrants, who will try to tell you, we didn't have nothing to do with no slavery or Jim Crow. We don't owe for nothing. And yet these people are just as racist as any good old boy on any plantation. What they've shown is they know the rules of racism and they love to play along. So yeah, they are every bit as complicit. They came to the United States so that they could take advantage of the world's strongest economy, made possible only by our uncompensated labor. And they also understood that there was a racial pecking order here, one that might allow them to do something that they can't do in Latin America, and that is to claim to be white. So as far as they were concerned, they were going to get an economic and social upgrade at black people's expense. So for all the people out there who aren't paying attention, wondering whatever happened to the great Black-Brown Alliance, first of all, there never was one. And second of all, if you want to know what happened to it, it's because black people realized they were standing out there by themselves and got tired of standing alone and just said, forget it, we're packing it in. That's what happened. And this is not just the attitude of this woman here. There's a hell of a lot of folks across this country who share the exact same anti-black racism that she does. It's just that they don't get called out in open court about it. That's all. This video and the confessions that the judge had to wring from the defendant may have come as a surprise and a shock to certain people, but for black folks in America, it's no surprise at all. We've been complaining about this for the longest time. This has been a reality that we've been forced to have to endure. You got individuals who aren't blonde-haired and blue-eyed, they cannot trace their ancestry back to Western Europe, anything, and yet they can't wait to try to call themselves white on driver's licenses, job applications, school admission forms, the census forms, and all the rest of that stuff. And they also want to make it very clear they understand the rules of racism, and rule number one is this racial pyramid scheme calling itself a society will reward you if you're a mouth-frothing anti-black racist. You'll be rewarded for that. You get a pat on the head and then some. And then you wonder why it is that black folks are not sticking their necks out for any sort of immigration anything. Out there in Los Angeles, you got the LA Times who are all up in arms because the Orange Man has been sending in the National Guard, and he's making it very clear that wherever his guys go, they're going to be fully supported. And you know what? Truth be told, as president, he's doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing. He has his directives, he has his program, and he's making sure that when his guys show up, their authority is not questioned, and if it is questioned, they got enough force to make sure that it won't be questioned for very long. And black people are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing out there in Los Angeles, staying the hell out of it. It is not our turn to give a rip about what's going on because nobody ever cares about what happens to us. So that being the case, everybody's standing on their own. We've been standing out there alone for the longest time. Now everybody else can see what it's like. Because the truth of the matter is, these other folks, they ain't built like we are. They're not even trying to. As far as they're concerned, they're waiting for white mommy and white daddy to stop slapping them in the face and start patting them on the head. And what they're realizing is, nah, the Orange Man, he can keep slapping you for a minute now. And all of those folks who they thought were going to come running to their rescue, they ain't there. Where are the teeming throngs of tens of thousands in the streets? They're not there. Because a lot of them understand that if they actually called themselves going to one of them little illegal alien rallies, ICE will be sitting there, handcuffs and flexi cuffs at the ready. They know that. Hell, they're snatching people out of court. What do you think they'll do? You call yourself having yourself some sort of rally. They'll be like, good, bring in the armored personnel carriers, bring in the big high water trucks. We want to make sure we box everybody in and round them up. And what's the white media's response to this been? Well, we got the LA Times, supposed to be the paper of record out there. They're running articles with headlines such as, Feds vow to continue immigration enforcement every day in LA. Here are your rights. So what you got is the LA Times trying to give a how-to manual on how to evade the illegal immigration roundup that's going on. When you had the BLM protests, you didn't have the LA Times or anybody else in the white media talking about what to do when the police are arresting protesters or how people should try to resist the police during traffic stops or when the cops show up at your home, how you can stonewall them. They weren't doing that. Instead, it was all police do a dangerous job. And what about the records of these black people that they've been killing? You know, these guys, half of them happen to have no record at all, but don't worry about them. We're going to worry about the other half who might have had a little bit of dirt under their fingernails. We're going to focus on that. They're not doing that this time around. Instead is, well, here's how you can escape and evade the police. Here's how you can stonewall them. Here's the questions that you may need to answer, but here's the ones you don't need to answer. They're given a how-to manual on how to stonewall and evade the cops. They're doing this for illegal aliens, people who aren't even citizens. I could see it differently, perhaps, if they were doing this for law-abiding citizens, but they're doing this for people who aren't even in the country legally. Never mind the fact that a hell of a lot of those people happen to be dangerous criminals, not just for crimes they committed in the United States, but crimes they committed back in their home countries, which is the reason why so many of them don't want to have to go back, because they know as soon as they do, they're going straight to jail. They figured that they would run away from whatever legal sentence that they were facing in their home country and flee to the U.S. instead. And they've been allowed to. But now they're being told, you got to go back home and face the music. That's what this is really about. Criminals who don't want to have to face the charges that they racked up for themselves back in their home countries. So they're demanding asylum in the U.S. They ain't fleeing from no doggone gangs. They're fleeing from the consequences of their own criminality. That's what this is really about. And you got the white media sitting here telling us that we need to go ahead and overlook all that. They've got rights. Yeah, they got rights, which, by the way, have been observed and upheld to the letter. They're explaining how people who aren't even citizens can protect their rights when their rights haven't been violated. The laws, however, have been violated. You have one of the major publications in America and arguably the largest in the state of California, and this is what they're saying to the public. They're laying out a plan for how to evade immigration enforcement, and they're making sure to publicize it to everyone. We want to make sure that everybody fights against law enforcement on this one. Never mind the fact that when Jim Crow Joe was president, he made it a point to divert COVID funds illegally from the federal government straight into the coffers of the police. So all of those people out there who are going to find themselves facing law enforcement, just keep in mind, Joe Biden made sure to turbocharge the cops. The thugs in blue got a hell of a lot more money to work with and buy a lot more equipment to go after people. So those same folks who were sitting there saying that Joe Biden was a great president and need to give Kamala Harris the keys to the White House, this is what he enabled. But people don't think about that because all they thought about was, well, it's black people that were thinking about. This is going to apply to black people. That's what they thought. And now they're finding out the reality. People thought that they were going to get themselves in good with the white establishment powers that be, and now what's happened is it blew up in their faces and backfired. Am I supposed to be crying tears about that? And of course, you got California's primary illegal immigrant advocate, Karen Bass, living up to her name and complaining that the orange man sent in the National Guard. He federalized the National Guard here. Well, considering that California is ground zero for illegal aliens, instead of sending in the National Guard, he should have sent in the 101st Airborne. That's what he should have done. He didn't send in enough of them as far as I'm concerned. You got illegal aliens showing up at the Home Depot, standing out in broad daylight. And you got Mayor Bass complaining about that and saying, we had been told that he was going to go after violent criminals. It wasn't a drug den, it was a Home Depot. So I guess as far as Karen Bass is concerned, it's not enough to merely be a criminal. You have to be a violent criminal before she's willing to, at least on camera, say that ICE should be able to round you up. So as long as what you did was you stole somebody's car or you broke into somebody's house, as long as you didn't beat anybody up, didn't rape them, and didn't kill anyone, as long as you're not standing there with a bloody knife in one hand and a dime bag of meth in the other screaming, I did it, as far as she's concerned, there should be no arrest. Because that's what she's really saying. Immigration and Customs Enforcement shows up, they're supposed to be just looking and going, well, I mean, they might want to be trying to install some drywall somewhere or maybe do some landscaping, so we dare not stop that. No. What matters is they're in the country illegally. That's supposed to be the end of it. Doesn't matter if they're violent criminals. The problem is that they're criminals, period. Their presence in the country is illegal. And this whole scam about, well, as long as somebody claims amnesty, they can go ahead and be in the United States pending their court hearing. Now, that's a doggone lie, and everybody knows it. What happens is they just go to wherever the hell they're going to be going to, and nobody ever follows up on them because the idea was never to follow up on them. The idea from the very beginning was that mass immigration would be used as a political and demographic counterlever to the pressure that black people were putting on the system. It's been that way since the 19th century. All of those European immigrants who were allowed in, it wasn't because they loved the Irish. They had up signs that said no dogs are Irish allowed. But what they did know was that the Irish would fit in quite well with the system of anti-black racism that was set up, and that's exactly what happened. From the draft riots to the labor unions to the police departments, the Irish were easily able to fit right into the anti-black structure that existed in the U.S., and they forgot all about the problems that they had with those same Anglo-Saxons cousins over in the old country in Ireland. They forgot all about that. And we saw the same pattern play itself out with every single group of immigrants who have ever come to the United States. Doesn't matter who they are, they all understand assimilation means you're getting on code against black people. Everybody understands that. They know that's what it means. So for this latest dust up in Los Angeles, the people who are sitting here trying to do all of that, we're all in this together stuff, no. Everybody's going to go to their respective corners and they're going to stick up for themselves and let it be. Because black people for the longest time were trying to get everybody to hold hands and come together, and everybody said, well, you guys, you need to be on your own, and stop complaining, and we got better things to do, and okay, fine then, we got better things to do. Because that is our right. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Russell Richardson, Sakina Collins, Suleiman Alaji, Dia Williams, and Antonio Daniels. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.